Hey everybody, Mike here, History in the Mirror. Happy Independence Day. Today is July 4th, and today is the day that we as Americans celebrate our independence as a nation, celebrate the birth of this great nation. Let's just keep that in the forefront of our thinking and our thoughts today as we go forward and enjoy what's shaping up to be a pretty beautiful day. It might be a little steamy here a little later on, but still going to enjoy it. We're going to have a good time today. Got a couple of things for you today. First and most exciting for me, we are now on Parler, Parler.com, which is a Twitter alternative. And there's been a lot of censorship going on Twitter lately, and a couple of gentlemen got together and said, hey, let's do something about it. Let's get free speech back on the internet. So they started this website called Parler, very similar to Twitter. And I would encourage you to go sign up. I know Senator Ted Cruz is on there. I know there's some other political figures that are now on Parler. Go sign up. We're over 2 million strong right now and growing quickly. So go ahead and head over there, check it out, and see if you like it, get signed up. We are there at History in the Mirror. And go ahead and follow us there. We're going to be doing a lot more posting on Parler. They don't have a lot of algorithmic filtering like Facebook does. I don't know if there's a lot of you who don't see us. We've got a certain amount of likes on the Facebook page, but if you don't see it because of the algorithms, then it really doesn't do any good to go there. So let us know that you're there and encourage your friends to go and sign up also and follow us there. If you like the content that we're putting out, we'd love to have you. Been listening a lot lately to Jocko Willink, reading his book called The Dichotomy of Leadership, and have his first book, Extreme Ownership, on the way. Excellent leadership principles going on there. Jocko is a former Navy SEAL commander. He was a unit commander of Task Force Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi in Iraq in 2003, 2004, 2005, around that area. Great guy, super squared away. He's pretty intense. But the stuff that he puts out is solid gold as far as leadership and personal responsibility. So I would encourage you to check that out. Check those books out. Check him out on his podcast. He's got a podcast called Jocko Podcast. Amazing. He puts a new podcast out once a week. He has a lot of amazing guests on there. One of his guests, my second favorite episode so far, is with Dan Crenshaw. If you know anything about Dan Crenshaw, Dan is in the United States House of Representatives representing Texas 2nd District, which is the Houston area. And Dan is also a former Navy SEAL. He was wounded and lost an eye in combat in Afghanistan. And he did an interview in Jocko Podcast. He's got them all done by number. Number 222 is the most recent interview with Dan Crenshaw, and they're plugging Dan's new book, called Fortitude. And I've got the book, I've got Dan's book, Fortitude, and I've been reading it. It is amazing. It really is. Dan also has a podcast called Hold These Truths. I would encourage you to check that out. He's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And he's just coming from his perspective as in being inside the federal government, inside the federal lawmaking body that we have. His perspective is pretty amazing. I'm going to link a couple of episodes down below in the comments. One of them is going to be Jocko's podcast, Jocko's interview with Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw did a podcast that I listened to yesterday with Dinesh D'Souza, and it is amazing. It is just a complete eye-opener as far as socialism. So give that a listen. I'll put that one down there too. The crux of what I wanted to get to with Dan Crenshaw, well, not so much Dan, but Jocko, with Jocko today, is a podcast interview he did with a Holocaust survivor named Rose Schindler. And it's podcast number 219, Jocko Podcast number 219. I'm going to link it down here too. A very gut-wrenching interview. I mean, just very, I don't know, it'd make a guy really, really do some soul searching. Listening to Jocko interview this precious lady, and I if you can, I would recommend watching the podcast. Jocko puts his podcast up on YouTube, which I think is great. and you can see facial expressions and things like that. You can just, I think sometimes it's easier to relate to how people are reacting and acting by watching their facial expressions. Excuse me. As Jocko was going through interviewing Rose Schindler, you see a lot of times when he's just like, you can tell he's just seething with rage at what happened to these people. And you can hear it in the audio version of the podcast, but you can see it on the video version. And you can tell this guy would just literally just throat punch some of these people if he could get his hands on them. We don't need to now. They're all dead as far as the Nazis go. But just to know that human beings are capable of such evil and wickedness against each other is just, it's mind-boggling. So anyway, Rose and her husband, Max Schindler, wrote a book, and I have the book. It's called Two Who Survived. This book is, Jocko did his podcast, reads some excerpts from the book from both Rose's and Max's story. But I got the book because I wanted to have it for future reference. They don't go through the whole book in the podcast, just select highlights. And as you know, one of my things in my heart to do is to bring history into the forefront of what's happening today in the hopes that we don't repeat it. Okay. And Holocaust history is very near and dear to my heart because I could see the winds blowing that direction if a few more pieces of the puzzle were in place. Okay. And there's a lot of people that look at it and say, how can you say that about the United States of America? Well, just look around. Okay. Just do some looking around, see what's going on with the propaganda, see what's going on with the vilification of a certain group of individuals based on race or color or anything like that. And you can see that if we don't check this at some point in the life of this nation, we could potentially be there. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to link the episodes with Jocko and Rose Schindler. I'm going to link the episodes with Jocko and Dan Crenshaw. I'm going to link Dan Crenshaw's podcast with Dinesh D'Souza down in the comments down here. We're going to send you also, or not send you, but I'm going to link the book, Rose's book, Rose and Max's book, Two Who Survived. Jocko's books, Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership, are excellent leadership books. I haven't read Extreme Ownership yet, but I've read I'm reading, in the process of reading, The Dichotomy of Leadership. And I'll be honest with you, there's some leadership books out there that are just about as dry as a cork in the middle of summer. And, they give you all these concepts, but they don't give you any practical, real-world examples of how you could implement them. What I love about Jocko's book is that's exactly what he does, is this is what happened. It gives you a concept, like plan but don't overplan. And then what he will do is he will relate that to a situation when he was in the Navy SEALs, and then also talk about the concept and then relate it to a session that he did with a company in talking about a business company that he worked with, him and the co-author of the book Dichotomy of Leadership. And I believe also they co-authored Extreme Ownership. They have a consulting firm called Echelon Front, and they do business consulting and leadership training. But he'll relate those stories so you can see how the concept works in the context of a military environment and then also in the context of a business environment. So you get to learn that. You say, oh, okay, that's what that means. All right, so I'm going to link those books down there because I'm a firm proponent in, let's be supportive of one another. I've never met Jocko. Jocko doesn't have a clue who I am, but I will just let all of you know that Jocko is legit and he's worthy of your time, listening, and stuff like that. Dan Crenshaw also is, I believe Dan is a patriot at heart, and these guys will really help to improve your way of life if you apply what they put forward. Dan Crenshaw's book is called Fortitude, if I didn't say that. So anyway, that's what I've got for today. There was a couple other things that I was thinking about putting on here, but I think I'm just going to end that. I don't want to get too long. I know we've got a lot of things going on today with this weekend being a holiday weekend. So give a read to you know what? I want to do one more thing quick. If I didn't put this up, Hell Before Their Very Eyes, John McManus, is about the American soldiers' experience liberating some of these death camps at the end of World War II. It's a gut wrencher. I'll just tell you that. Anything that is ground level related to the Holocaust is gonna really just it's just going to be a tough read. It's going to be just a gut punching read, but it's worth it. It's worth your time. Okay. So I'm going to link that book down there too. John is one of my favorite authors, and his stuff is just amazing. So anyway, let's keep on keeping on. Remember the reason for today. It's the day of the independence of the great nation of the United States of America. Love you all. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support. Head over to Parler. Follow us at History in the Mirror, and shoot us a comment, a like, subscribe on the YouTube, and we'll see you next time around. God bless.